On July 1962, the United States government got word that the Soviet Union had been shipping for a couple months nuclear warhead supplies capable of producing an extreme attack on any country to the communist island of Cuba located below Florida and ruled by the powerful dictator Fidel Castro, who had already encountered problems with the U.S. because of his unconstitutional actions during power. President John F. Kennedy saw this as a threat and ordered reconnaissance planes to fly over Cuba to photograph and report any signs of nuclear activity, and what they discovered was about 4 or 5 nuclear missile sites stationed on the northern part of the country. Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev had placed them there in order to become more of an influence to the United States and to use it against them if the Soviets ever needed assistance. Kennedy urged Khrushchev to remove the nuclear warheads off of Cuba, but Khrushchev refused and the U.S. was forced to blockade anything coming in or out from Cuba until the nuclear warheads were removed. And when the Soviets got word of this, they too set their own blockade, preventing anything coming or going from Cuba to the U.S. But this act caused many to protest from the citizens of the two rival countries, causing Kennedy to address the nation on the current situation on October 22, 1962.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. This government, as promised, has maintained the closest surveillance of the Soviet military buildup on the island of Cuba. Within the past week, unmistakable evidence has established the fact that a series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on that imprisoned island. The purpose of these bases can be none other than to provide a nuclear strike capability against the Western Hemisphere. Upon receiving the first preliminary hard information of this nature, last Tuesday morning at 9 a.m., I directed that our surveillance be stepped up. And having now confirmed and completed our evaluation of the evidence and our decision on a course of action, this government feels obliged to report this new crisis to you in fullest detail. The characteristic of these new missile sites indicate two distinct types of installations. Several of them include medium-range ballistic missiles capable of carrying a nuclear warhead for a distance of more than 1,000 nautical miles. Each of these missiles, in short, is capable of striking Washington, D.C., the Panama Canal, Cape Canaveral, Mexico City, or any other city in the southeastern part of the United States, in Central America, or in the Caribbean area. Additionally, be designed for intermediate-range ballistic missiles, capable of traveling more than twice as far, and thus capable of striking most of the major cities in the Western Hemisphere, ranging as far north as Hudson's Bay, Canada, and as far south as Lima, Peru. In addition, jet bombers, capable of carrying nuclear weapons, are now being uncrated and assembled in Cuba.
Following the address to the nation, Kennedy added that U.S. naval forces were to sink any Soviet ships carrying nuclear weapons. The tension grew for 14 straight days with an encounter so close involving a Soviet submarine coming in close contact with a U.S. naval boat, which would have surely resulted in the two boats launching their weapons at one another and both of the countries launching themselves and the rest of the world in a catastrophic nuclear war. Luckily, this did not happen, and Khrushchev and Castro decided to end the crisis and called Kennedy to inform him that they would remove the nuclear warheads off of Cuba under one condition, and that was for the U.S. to never interfere or challenge Cuba in any way, and Kennedy had no other choice but to agree. After the crisis was over, countries became more aware of the damage caused by nuclear weapons, and many anti-nuclear treaties were made, and humane groups were formed to help prevent nuclear disaster. If we are all aware of the damage nuclear weapons can do, then we can take action as a society and create a more serene and peaceful future.